Good morning. Welcome to Sales Chatter. This is the podcast where we try to help 10,000 reps hit a million GP. I'm your co-host, Ryan Mohammed. With me is my main man, the bodacious cowboy, president and CEO of RGTX Logistics Solutions, Jeff Dickinson. How you doing this morning, brother? As I got you on mute.
Oh, there you go. Oh, okay,
No, you're
great.
good.
Yeah, novice move there, my friend. Novice move. Yeah, it was a great weekend. I'm looking forward to this week. I think it's a very important subject, empowering women into logistics. I've spoken about it before, and with that said, let's get into it.
To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly.
Beautiful. So if you're new here, this is season 2, day 1 of basically getting into our next season. We're talking about women, empowering women into logistics. It's something that both Jeff and I and everybody across the industry itself, it's something that we need to shine a little bit of light on, right, Jeff? Because,
Yes.
we've always kind of come across that, hey, well, it's kind of like this month with Black History Month, right? We only use 1 month to kind of like celebrate it, but it's like, no. We got to talk about this every day. We got to actually make changes to actually let them stick and things like that. So, Jeff, if you want to introduce our amazing panel of guests today.
Yes, we are fortunate enough to have our good friends from Mac Recruiters. We have Brook, Jocelyn, and Kathryn joining us today to talk about an important subject, uh, empowering women into logistics. With all the layoffs, and unfortunately, I don't know the percent as far as women to men are concerned, but women over the years have been not appreciated enough. And since the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which changed so much over the last decades, we still have issues today, which is incredible when you think about the decades that have passed and where we were, where we are today, where we need to be, and how the heck are we going to get there? And so joining us from Mac Recruiters are our good friends. We have Jocelyn. Jocelyn, please, introduce yourself and your company.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having us. I'm Jocelyn Chase. I'm a managing partner here as well as an executive recruiter. I have been with the company for 10 years, and I didn't start out as a partner. About 8 years ago, we had a reorganization with our ownership and our leadership, and it was at that time that our new leader, four of us women became partners, and we're now team leaders. And there's in our company are 6 partners. 5 of them are women.
Nice.
So we definitely, look at women in leadership, and we hold it a high standard here. And we are definitely always looking for women. And we do also now have a diversity recruiters as well. So a lot of our clients of late have been really requesting diverse candidates, specifically women. And so we kind of have always been doing that. And we enjoy putting women in leadership anytime we can.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And we have Brooke Sims. Brooke, introduce yourself, please.
I'd be happy to. So glad to join today. So my name is Brooke Sims. I currently serve as the COO of Mac Diversity Recruiters. I have been with the organization for about 6 months, and it has been a tremendous ride. I do love that we have a very female-dominant organization. Part of the mission here with Mac Diversity Recruiters is really to be a transformative player in the workplace. And so we can be able to be the bridge that helps provide access and opportunity to diverse populations. Obviously, women are a strong part of what we do. And to Jocelyn's point, we've had a lot of clients that are very focused on being intentional about driving the numbers and making sure they have equal representation for women. So I'm excited about what we do and super excited for the conversation today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And last but not least, we have Kathryn Macchia. Kathryn.
Macchia, yes, but very close. No one ever gets it right.
Oh,
Yes, Kathryn Macchia. I have been with Mac Recruiters for about a year and a half now, and prior to that was working in marketing and sales roles in IT, which traditionally is a very male-dominated industry. Coming over to Mac, seeing all the women in leadership and the focus on diverse hires definitely drew me closer to the organization, and I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. So, thank you for having us and letting us share our stories.
awesome. Thank you so much. Now, I have an important question. I did some research and I found it very baffling. And hopefully, you can answer these questions. In the C-level position for women, I noticed that 1 out of 4, 25% of the women are in C-level, and women of color, 1 out of 20 or 5% in C-level positions, which is just absolutely horrible. What do you think is the cause of that, and what can we do to change that? We are where we are today, but obviously we need to move forward. What are your thoughts on that, and how do we do that?
So ladies, I don't know if you want to chime in. I'm happy to take that. Um, so it's interesting because the reason we're here is also kind of the reason that we can make a change. And if you think about just women, and I think of women like in a diverse group of individuals, a lot of what has hindered the growth of women into leadership roles is things that we're working on now, things a lot of organizations are working on now, uncovering and addressing the biases that come along with different populations and how that's impacted their specific growth. I think those things have definitely come into play. If you look at some of the statistics from the time that Title VII was passed until now, the percentage of women in the workplace has significantly increased. But you're right, the women in executive or C-suite level roles is still far behind where we need to be. And so we have a lot of work to do. I think organizations in general have a lot of work to do to be very intentional about that and be very aligned with women's roles, right? So a lot of times there are women, many of us, I think, hold multiple titles. We're not just professionals. We're many times wives and mothers, and coming into the workplace and not acknowledging that facet of our lives really has a big impact to who we are and how we show up. I mean, you've probably seen the statistics about women through the pandemic and how many have left the workplace because of the difficulties they faced, because we have more than just showing up as a professional. So, uncovering and addressing the biases, but also aligning to the roles that women can hold and how we can make an impact there. How can we address the fact that women can be spouses and can be moms, and we can provide space for them to do that and provide a balance for them to be able to find time to live out those facets of their lives as well.
And what do you think, on the HR side of any corporation out there, what do you feel that they can do to help benefit women more from what you're saying, to open it up a little bit more for them to jump into those critical roles?
I can answer that. I think having flexible work arrangements, and I think I say that, but that could also maybe put you in a box too. That
Sure.
a man might be saying, well, I want a flexible work schedule too. So I think offering flexible work schedules in general, some people, they're early birds, so just in general, hey, if I'm a single mom and I need to get my kids to school and pick them up from school, then that should be offered to me. If you're a single dad and it should be offered to him. So I think just offering flexible work schedules in general would definitely be able to help put more women, in the workforce and in executive leadership, no matter, whatever the title is. I just think offering the schedule would be better.
Yeah, I'm thinking of many different questions, so just bear with me for a second. You've interviewed plenty of women, I'm sure of that. What do you think, or what is the number one concern for them collectively that makes them a little hesitant or afraid to ask those questions because they don't want to feel that they're special. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
what is that feeling that you get that comes up quite often when you're interviewing them?
It definitely, well, a lot of times positions may have travel. And so that's their number one question. I'm a single parent. I can't travel that much. I don't have a support system around me. What's the amount of travel? Or these days now, the first question is it hybrid? Do I have an opportunity to work from home because I've been working from home and it allows me to pick up my child or take them wherever it needs to be. So, they need to understand, is there flexibility, just like what we talked about? Is there any flexibility for me because I have been working remote or I can't travel? I would say that's first and foremost their first question. What are the hours? What's my expected work week look like? What's the work-life balance?
Right. Now, what do you think the issue is between men and women with that? Where do you think that men feel, hey, I want that too? I know that there's diversity out there and they're trying to, make things a little equal, but there is that saying out there, it's been out there for a while, oh sure, she can do it, but how come I can't? I mean, what's your feelings on that?
That's what I was talking about earlier. We have to kind of be careful about, giving women certain privileges because it should just be for everyone. But certainly if we're going to open it up, that has to happen. It has to be flexible because there are so many women out there who are single parents, don't have a support system, they need to work, but they also need to raise their families. And so, we just have to, give them those freedoms to be able to come and go and not ask the questions. And it needs to not be a stigma.
Yeah. Now, how about asking for raises? Are women more open now to voice their opinions when they don't feel that they're being recognized? I mean, do you get that feedback from them? Like you interview a woman, you put them in a position, and now they have a question, and they're not, they don't feel comfortable in asking it. Have you ever had a woman reach out to you and say, "Listen, Jocelyn, you know what? I've been here for like 6 months. I've been doing X and Y, and I feel that I'm ready. How should I go about this?" Have you ever had that kind of a question?
I can't say that I have. I will say, as a recruiter, we can't ask them what they're making, but we ask them, what's your expectation? And so that's how we kind of submit them to a client is, this is what they're looking for. And I think I've never really had it, they don't check in with me on those kind of things. So I don't know, Kate, Brooke, I don't know.
I'm happy to add, but Kate, I'd love to hear your voice too.
Yeah.
Sure. And I have talked with consultants, coaches, etc., and I do know that traditionally women don't ask for as much as they're typically worth or, have reservations around asking for a raise, especially if it's, a male boss that's their senior, or are denied more often, even just talking with friends, family members, and other people in the industry. So I think a lot of that fear is in thinking that you're not going to be valued. And then once you ask for that raise and say you are rejected, then that all just starts to add up. You have more resentment towards the organization, you don't feel valued, etc. But understanding and speaking with other women, whether they're in your industry or not, on how should we go about asking for this raise, or really being confident in what you're asking for and understanding, the value that you bring to the organization is going to be key. And there are all kinds of articles and videos and things out there that you can reference for, asking for those pay increases. But I think a big part of it also is understanding that there are pay gaps between men and women. And while it's not, available in every organization, but understanding what the male counterparts are making or being able to gauge off of, any kinds of numbers or what's typical in the industry, et cetera, would be helpful. Just more transparency around pay with your peers in general, I think could help women feel more comfortable speaking up.
Jeff,
Yeah,
can I add one quick thing too?
sure.
So in my experience, I have had women that have come and shared their feedback about asking for a raise. And I find often that women feel like they are being greedy. That's been the things that they've shared. They feel like they're not deserving. And I think that a lot of times goes back to the organization of empowering women to feel like it is their space, right? So it's imperative that we as women learn how do we take our space and how do we just individually change our own narrative so we understand that we are capable, that we are deserving, that we have done the work and we should make the ask. And then having somebody that can also on the organization front empower women to do so. There, to Kathryn's point, there are organizations that are addressing the pay gap. And so having something very public about understanding and recognizing the pay gap and finding ways to solve that, I think will be a great landscape for women to start kind of owning their space and sharing more and asking more for the things that they deserve.
Now, how do you get a woman into that position of building that confidence? What you were talking about, by by getting rid of that feeling that you mentioned, that they weren't adequate, they didn't have the value, all this. I mean, that's a real shame. I mean, that kind of bothers me a lot, and I'm sure that it bothers you a lot. And I'd love to see them have that more confident level where they can go in just like a male and have that dominating kind of feature. Is like, I've done this, I did this, this is what I think, because let's face it, when you get those raises, they tell you what that percentage, and let's face it, everybody in corporations out there, they talk amongst themselves and they tell you who's making what, and I'm sure if you're in earshot that a woman would hear, that, John is making X and I'm making Y and I do the same thing as John. How do you build that up, to build that confidence? So I'm just curious. I know Jocelyn was saying about, you were saying actually about the coaches and those kind of people that help develop women to have that kind of those feelings. What are your thoughts?
So honestly, I think it's a lifelong journey. That historically, I think women and men have been raised a little different. And you've probably heard a lot about, traditionally women are kind of, be still, be quiet, don't be disruptive. And how that plays out professionally is that women get into the spaces not feeling comfortable and confident to ask. And then on the flip side, people kind of taking the perspective of when women do raise their hand and their voice of being labeled. Women end up being labeled as many different things, but we'll call aggressive probably one of the lighter of those, and too dominant or masculine, or they're just labels that women tend to take on or be called because they've raised their hand and shared their perspective or made the ask. And so I think it's a lifelong journey. I'm a parent of two girls, and I think it's my personal responsibility to make sure that to the best of my ability, they feel comfortable taking space and they feel comfortable being bold and they feel comfortable doing things that the world tells them that girls and women are not supposed to do. And so that professionally, and they get to the place of, okay, it's time to make the ask, they're ready because they've already experienced and they already have gone through the process of understanding their value and their worth. There are other things you can supplement with that, right? So their own personal development journeys, coaches, colleagues that are supporting that and helping women to feel like they are empowered to take that space. So it's kind of an all-encompassing approach, but I think it starts early.
Yeah. Ryan, do you have any questions?
Yeah, of course. I first and foremost, I'm loving these responses and seeing the engagement. Question, because as recruiters, you guys are obviously working with candidates, but then you guys are also interviewing companies that you will represent as well. What kind of values and what kind of culture do you guys look at the companies that you guys represent in terms of see if that, hey, is it going to be a fit with what we do here at Mac Executive Recruiters? Maybe I'll throw that one on Jocelyn.
Sure. We always, have interviews with our clients first off, and we do talk about culture because we want to be able to sell to the candidates, right? And some of the questions we do ask is, tell us about your diversity. Is there a need for for us to bring you diversity, whether that be in race, gender, fill in the blank. How do you need, us to help you? Because it is important for us to be able to, like I said, sell to the candidate. If we're in a industry or that's, predominantly maybe male focused, but they're wanting diversity, tell us more, give us some more details as to, how many females do you have now and what positions do they hold? Are they already in a leadership position? How are they viewed by their peers or viewed by their direct reports? That's very important for us to be able to go and sell to other women of, hey, this is where they are. This is where they're wanting to go. This is why I'm talking to you, because you're bringing the skill set that they're looking for. So it's very important for us to talk to our clients and hear about their culture so that we know how to sell it to the candidates.
I'll elaborate on that a little bit as well, because a lot of times when we are going through that initial intake with a potential client, we do talk a lot about culture, but then also try to get an understanding of where they are in the journey. So it may be that they know that they need to diversify, right? But are there any initiatives in place where you are measuring and taking strides towards the workplace that you may know you need to have, but have never, taken action, held yourselves accountable, measuring that, looking at the progress in the organization, promoting women or diverse talent in general, and understanding your own unconscious biases whenever you're hiring, right? So it's hard to be conscious of unconscious biases, but going back to what you said about HR people earlier in the call, like what can individuals in HR do to help get women in those positions? And a big part of it is understanding unconscious bias and keeping an eye out for it in the organization and training and interviewing, but also just the job description. So there could be things listed in the job description that maybe, a male could have some of those qualifications, et cetera, whatever it is. But then is there bias towards the type of person that you're looking to hire? You may say you want diverse candidates, but are there things in the job description that limit the talent pool as far as diversity? So a huge part of it really is understanding unconscious bias and attempting to be conscious of it. It's always going to exist, but understanding that too, and just making more of an effort to remove some of those barriers for women and diverse talent can really help move the needle forward.
So let me ask you this. I'm sure that you talk to directors of human resources, VPs of human resources at these corporations. What kind of questions do you ask them to solidify what you just said about all of that? I mean, how do you go about? And this is the reason why I'm asking this question is to allow women out there that are watching this show, and if they reached out to you, I want them to have that confident level that, when they talk to Mac recruiters, this is the way they go about, asking those pertinent questions to help them get into the right seat at the right corporation.
Yeah, Kate, I don't know if you want to take it. I'm happy to also.
we can bounce off each other. Go for it.
Sure. So really understanding the best practices that an organization has put in place for diverse talent. So, some of the things are understanding what do their hiring panels look like, right? Historically, that has been a barrier for any facet of diverse talent. So understanding that, what is their journey, and understanding that every organization is at a different part of their journey. And so not just what the organization has said, but how have they taken intentional action and implemented practices. It could be diverse hiring panels. It could be, to Kate's point, reviewing their job descriptions to make sure that the language is neutral. It could be also what they've done to help elevate and promote women. Have they created sponsorship and networking opportunities? It's being very transparent and asking about their transparency reports about their DEI metrics, and what that's looked like. What are their goals specifically, and where are they in alignment with those goals? Because at the right organizations, you'll find that they are going to be very open and honest about where they are. And I would say, as a candidate, especially in 2023, if you encounter an organization, and for us, if we encounter one that is not willing to have that conversation, it's a red flag.
Yeah.
They should absolutely have a very intentional focus. And, I think another thing that a candidate can focus on, and things that we can as an agency, is really understanding how have they integrated the facets of DEI that they're focusing on. Because it can't just be, we're looking to increase the numbers. It goes well beyond that. And so for women to continue to, populate and get to a place in the workforce where there's more equal representation from the bottom to the top, organizations really have to, and we have to look for, what have they done beyond just the numbers? Is it a part of their training? Is it a part of their branding? What does that look like? What do they do with the management teams? How do they hold them accountable, annually, and then from years to come? How are they holding them accountable? What are they doing specifically to hold them accountable beyond a conversation? And so I think the floor is open for candidates to ask all of the questions. And at the right organization, the hiring managers and the executives should be well versed in the actions that are being taken to diversify the workforce.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more on that. And the other thing is that you talk to, again, a lot of HR people, many different corporations. You ever ask the percentage women to men?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
what are your findings still today?
So I think the representation there is a much stronger representation of women. What, at least I'll give that there's still the same or similar disparities among organizations. At a lower level population, there is increased diversity from race and gender. And as you climb the ranks, the disparity still exists. There's still a big gap for women and for people of color to populate, I would call, the mid-level manager through executive. And obviously, we're all aware that as you get higher and higher, you get up to the C-suite, the population dwindles. And so there has been a big shift to really focus on how do we bring in representation to kind of even equal the playing field, but then how are organizations, and questions that we ask, how are you bringing up your internal talent for them to be ready for the next step? Because a big part of this is you can't constantly continue to hire. The reality about anything related to DEI is that people don't want to be the first or the only. They want to be a part of a critical mass that's going to make a big impact. And organizations have to address that from every angle that they can. So bringing in new talent, but as an employee of any organization, you'd want to think, if I join or if I'm here, I have the opportunity to elevate. And, women have to have those support systems through the training, through the networking, through the sponsoring, and executives have to do the work to be able to bring people up.
Yes, I agree. I definitely agree with that wholeheartedly. Ryan, do you have any further questions?
No, I thought this was an amazing insight just to kind of start off with everything. Brooke, Kathryn, Jocelyn, the amount of knowledge that I've just learned in the last 30 minutes. Even my wife is in the comments. She never watches the show. So to see my wife in the comments going off, like, love you, Keish. But to kind of see the changes that we do need to make.
Yes.
I think, this is awesome. We definitely need to have you guys back on here and, kind of further this conversation. Can we tell us a little bit about Mac Executive Recruiters, what industries, what kind of focuses your team is looking for? And actually, you know what? My wife brings up a question here. So I guess we'll get that and then we'll call it a day. But are there certain questions that candidates should ask to ensure not only is the hiring panel consciously aware, but also the staff and colleagues? If anybody wants to take that bad boy.
I mean, a lot of times candidates we ask on behalf of the candidates, who is the hiring panel, right? What do they look like? Can we find their LinkedIns? Can we look at the greater organization and see the type of people in those positions, or, what that may look like? What are they posting about on LinkedIn? Is this something that they're consciously aware of and taking action towards? So as far as I would just ask who are they? Like, find out everything you can about them. Really just do your research, look into the company and understand what they're talking about. And that should give you a pretty good idea of where they are in their journey. And if it's something that, they're really taking seriously and making progress towards.
If I could, I'll add one thing to that. And Kate, I think that's hugely impactful. There was some research done about the leader of any particular team being extremely instrumental in the experience that someone is going to have. And so I think that would cascade down to staff or colleagues, right? So if a leader is highly focused on DEI, they are going to engage their team in a number of different efforts. Most organizations now are implementing employee resource groups or business resource groups that are aligned to different affinity groups. And so I think the thing to find out for the hiring panel to understand the colleagues that they will be with is, what are you doing with your team? How do you feel about this? What activities are you participating in? How have you gotten your team involved? What kind of community activities and volunteering organizations are you focused on being engaged with? It's just like, what is your own journey as a hiring manager? And then how have you helped to cascade that to your entire team so that you can understand, like, who are you going to work with? Because if the day-to-day experience is going to be just as impactful as your day-to-day leadership experience. So I just kind of, to expand on it, it's the leader's going to drive a lot of the experience is going to be for a candidate.
Absolutely. Great points. So we're gonna close up this episode. For all the viewers out there, if they want to reach out to Mac recruiters, tell them who they should contact, your information, etc.
Sorry.
You're welcome to reach out to any one of us on LinkedIn or email. You can find that on our website as well. But we do have a few different divisions across a variety of industries. Essentially, we will work with you, understand what you need, understand, what you're looking for, and then make it as good as it can be for everyone. So I hope that helps answer that. But thank you guys so much for having us. If anyone else wants to elaborate.
Thank you for joining us. I think it was very beneficial for those who are watching us. And I can't thank you enough. Ryan, any further comments?
Of course, no, this was insightful. So we want to thank everybody for coming out this morning. If you found value in this, which I know you did, please like, subscribe, comment, share this with a colleague, because, it's a conversation that we need to have with everybody, and we're giving you guys golden nuggets for free. We might start charging when they come back on for the next episode. But with that being said, hit the replay again at 1 and 3 p.m. Eastern time. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And join us tomorrow. We have Monica, who'll be joining us from Bullseye Staffing. And with that being said, Jeff, take us out, brother.
Thank you so much, guys. It was such a great show. I think everybody out there really appreciated your comments. It was fantastic. And with that said, the Bodacious Cowboy is out. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.